Today we're talking about conditioning.
And welcome to our living room and functional human design.
Clearly, we do not do well with scripts.
I'm Reed.
Oh, I'm Jess.
Yep.
But we're having a fun time, so I guess that's what really matters. So on the topic of conditioning is one of those really funny things because none of us want to admit that we have it, but we all have it, but you can't see it because conditioning is really beliefs that existed before you did, because we inherit them from our family. And even if we leave our family, those beliefs are still there. And we call those beliefs conditioning.
Yep. Well said.
Thank you. I just shooting from the hip, speaking from the heart.
Where do we start?
Well, you know what? Let me ask you a question. What in your life caused you to not believe that you had conditioning? Pop quiz.
It was believing that my family knew something that others didn't, and it wasn't a religion. As soon as someone makes something into a belief and says, this is the truth, then it becomes reality. But in reality, other people have opinions and beliefs too. So what struck me when I was deconditioning from Christianity specifically was that I wasn't deconditioning from religion. I was deconditioning from beliefs that were unsaid and said in my childhood.
That's deep. Because it's the unsaid beliefs also. The little micro judgments, the little condescending remarks that you hear as a child grow up into an attitude as an adult that is many times not appropriate because the world has changed. So like when I was a young adult in the 90s, I had this set of beliefs that there were certain things that were right and there were certain things that were wrong. And I had this real black and white, right and wrong thinking. And I thought that I would have a better people picker because I did not tolerate what we now understand as overt abuses. So I had already been in a DV relationship. So my spidey senses were all over the place for yelling, for screaming, for degrading, for racism, for treating your waitress bad, for like being just rude to people. I was already very aware of those things, but it hasn't been until like the last 5 years that the entire world and myself has been on this journey of like understanding more covert abuses, the passive aggressive, the insidious type things that we weren't even talking about as a whole 20 years ago. And to me, that is the evolution of humanity. And it is super cool because one, that helps me forgive myself for not seeing things. And so one of my mantras has become, when I know better, I do better. And that allows for our growth and our expansion so that we're able to change. Because when we can see our own conditioning and we can see how up we are in our own ways, then it allows us to be like gently releasing those ideas. And we all have conditioning. We can't help it because we were born to parents that had their beliefs and they passed those beliefs on to us without us really knowing. And so I think conditioning is really like this veil that we wear where we think we're right, but we're not necessarily. And this is why when people travel, like if they experience different cultures or go to different countries, when you travel, you're able to see that the life that you understood is not the same life that other people are experiencing. But it's really difficult to do that. If you haven't had the money to travel or the freedom to travel, you're not able to see that there's different cultures that have different beliefs. And I believe that all the traveling I did in my youth and my young adult years really prepared me better for like life and parenting, because I was able to look at myself and go, maybe these beliefs that I'm believing aren't correct, because I see this whole other demographic of people that have totally different beliefs. And I like their beliefs better than my beliefs because my beliefs are very narrow. And so that journey of what we call deconditioning is really just looking at these beliefs, these things that you don't even know exist, and just asking questions. You know what? One of my favorite stories. I know I'm hogging the mic for a moment. Do you have something to jump in on before I tell a funny story?
Please.
Okay. So this isn't my story. I don't know where I heard it, but it's not mine. So there's this young gal. Let's just make her up. She's a teenager. She's like 15 years old, and it's Thanksgiving, and they're cooking a ham. And mom cuts the end off the ham and puts it in the dish to put it in the oven. And the daughter, the teenager, goes, Mom, why are you cutting the end off the ham? That's perfectly good meat. And mom says, I don't know. That's just the way we've always done it. She goes, go call grandma. So the teenager calls grandma, or Thanksgiving, she's probably sitting there. She goes, hey, grandma, why do we cut the end off the ham? And she goes, I don't know. That's just the way my grandma always did it. She goes, go call your great grandma. So she goes and she calls her great grandma. She says, great grandma, why do you always cut the end off the ham? She goes, oh, honey, my pan wasn't big enough.
Yep.
So many times we do things because 4 generations, 3 generations back, her pan wasn't big enough to hold the damn ham. And so they've been wasting that end of the ham for decades because great grandma didn't have a ham pan that was big enough.
No ham pan for grandma.
Right. And that is conditioning. We don't have to cut the end of the ham off just because great grandma's pan wasn't big enough. How do we look at those things? How do we discover what our conditioning is? And I had this divine, miraculous moment a few years back that made me go, oh, I see how we can identify all of our conditioning really fast. Do you remember what it was?
Government forms.
Yes. This might not be true for all the governments in all the world, but here in the good old US of A, our government forms, especially the ones that we had back in the 80s that asked questions about religion, those forms are all the things that you need to look at within yourself to help you decondition. Because your race, I spent a decade understanding and deconditioning my racism that is just bred into me because of my McWhiteiness. But it wasn't until I really looked at my own heritage and my own whiteness and found gratitude for who I am and started to dig into my ancestry that I became much more free and confident in my skin suit. And so race is a big one, and they ask that on government forms. Also,
marital status.
Marital status is another one, because think about stigmatized.
Right.
Single mothers, right.
Yeah.
Wait, and I am at 46 years old, the first generation of women who are born truly free. Let that sink in for the minute. I am 46 years old and I am the first generation of women who is born truly free. There's some heavy weight in that.
And why is it so easy to forget that? Like, why are we conditioning?
Right there.
Yeah. Women have rights because they can do this, they can do that. It's like, and it's done through advertising, it's done through religion, it's done through our parents. That's okay. At least you have this. At least.
We've had rights for less than 50 years.
Yeah.
And already women are exceeding men in education, in business, in home ownership. We are growing and rising because we had been suppressed and objectified for so long that now is we're like, hey, I can get a bank account. Hey, I'm allowed to start a business. Hey, I'm allowed to divorce this asshole husband. Now men are going, oh, what do we do? What do we do? And really, this is not about hating men. It's about the call to action for men to rise. It's time to do better and be better and look at our own conditioning, because that is the only way.
It's time for us men to have an identity shift so that we can do some deconditioning.
Bada bing, bada
Oh,
boom.
the irony.
Right.
Yeah.
So government forms, we've got race, gender's a big one. Education level, because generally we make more the more education we have. Age, marital status, whether or not you've been in the military, how obedient are you?
Oh, that's what military is all about. It's ranking and how obedient you've been to the system.
Right.
Yep.
And birth chart information, that we're talking about location of birth, place of birth, time of birth, those things, birth date. Those are all super important. Religion and political status. How many of you have born into one political household and then became the opposite? And many times, once you become the opposite, you realize that, right wing, left wing, same damn bird. It's all the same shit. Because when we start to look at our conditioning, we realize that it's not about good and bad, right and wrong, that there really is 50 shades of gray. And how the hell do we heal?
Especially coming from the standpoint of, I grew up in a cult. That's a cult.
Ditto.
Chore, right?
Yep.
Commonality.
Right?
The culture we live in, I didn't believe I was part of this culture, but I was part of a culture, and I was still part of the culture because when I got in the political realm, there were these opposite parties. I thought they were opposite. And then I learned they weren't opposite. And I learned that very early on in life because I was a militia kind of driven type person. I was around white male supremacist type people. I didn't choose to be around them. My mother sent me to work. I was with my uncles. Those are the people who I was around. I got to learn about racism firsthand. Never knew anything about it until I was about 15 years old because I grew up Mormon, and it was just my culture said, black people aren't welcome here. But it didn't say that. But the unsaid rules said that. So I had all these unsaid rules about, I'm not racist, I'm not this, I'm not that. And there's a whole lot of I'm nots going on here, right? Until I get to the point and I realize, oh, being a Constitution party is actually in opposition to all of this. That's part of the culture too. All of this opposition is actually built into the culture, just like it's built into our families. Right. Our families are a culture, and from there it expands out. And that's why the government creates these family units, because that's how we're able to be controlled. That's how we're able to keep our culture in place. Right. Because we have these units, not communities, not community driven.
Not the village that raises the child.
Nope.
But this nuclear family.
Yep. And that is part of the culture in the United States of America, for instance.
Yes.
How do we know when our conditioning is being challenged? Are we triggered?
That's a good question. For me, it was one of the things that our son said. It was, how are we responding to things? Because so many times we're living life and we're not like, oh, I'm triggered. Like, we don't walk around like that.
We're going around, we're in the matrix, and we're like,
Right, but we can feel ourselves responding or reacting like with a little, even if we have really good self-control, there's still many times this reaction where it's like, oh, I don't like that. In fact, I had some of that this morning when a dude was mansplaining all over me. And I was just like, oh, no. And that's really my conditioning versus his conditioning. Mm-hmm. Because I was also raised in a cult, but my cult was matriarchal. Mm-hmm. And so I had no concept of patriarchal cults because I was raised in a matriarchal cult where women were honored and believed and we were the center of everything. Just as crazy, but a total different belief system.
Mm.
And so the point of this entire video is to really just be able to look at where you came from, the beliefs that existed before you did, recognize that is not a big deal. It is just your conditioning. Your conditioning has a choice. You can do your laundry, like wash that shit out, clean your filters so that you can make better choices, because the world is evolving and we aren't waiting. You either like get on the boat or you're getting left behind, because that's why we have like this male loneliness epidemic. It's not male loneliness. Like, we would all choose to be with someone if they respected us, honored us, listened to us, cared for us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a single woman who has left and divorced their husband when he was respectful and kind and took care of himself and his responsibilities, and vice versa.
Yeah, because the conditioning of a man to, for instance, I grew up pleasing my mother. That was my way of survival. It was my way of receiving affection. So in this culture, there's a lot of men are seeking attention from one another because they couldn't receive it from their mother, and they never could. Like, if our mothers were burnt out and they were beat, yelled at by our fathers, different culture, they weren't allowed to. Now in this culture, we're not allowed to do that kind of thing. We actually have to have some tact. We actually have to have some self-control.
Use your words.
Right. So self-control and affection are getting really confused by men. I've been confused about this. And it's only been recent where I actually understand, like, I can actually ask to have my needs get met rather than being forceful or trying to coerce someone into having my needs met.
And guess what?
What?
That is the next video.
Nice.
Identifying needs and how to get them met.
Perfect timing.
We'll see you in the next one.